Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm glad to have you back. If you wouldn't mind doing so, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. It's on 30 different channels, including the biggie Apple. Apple's, of course, taking over the world, I guess, along with Amazon. We'll see. but go ahead and do that if you don't mind. It'd be great. And while you're online, please visit globalinvestoragent.com to select an investor agent for you. Remember, these are agents we've trained to serve you and I, the investor. They're certified. It's the only place they can get it. They know how to identify, analyze, and negotiate on and off market deals for you and I, both residential and commercial. They have the right tools. In fact, we know they have the right tools because we give them the tools, right? They have all the data, everything you could possibly imagine. So, and if you are a real estate agent, boy, no better time than now to click on the Learn More button and figure out how you can be part of that, because your model is changing, whether you know it or not. I'm sure you probably do if you're on this podcast. The market is shifting. It's in the beginning stages. It's not time to panic. It's time to prepare, and this is one sure way to do it. So without further ado, we got a great guest today. Steve Rozenberg. And Steve, thanks for being on. And I know we just spoke briefly. We had you on a couple of years ago, and it's good to have you back. And you bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. So I'm so grateful you're here, and I know you're busy, and I look forward to this podcast.
Appreciate you having me on, Gary. Good to see you again.
Yeah. Hey, for those who don't know you, would you mind kind of painting a picture for us? How did Steve Rosenberg get to where you are today? And make it colorful. Give us the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then we'll jump into some meat and potatoes for these guys.
Well, it definitely was not a straight line. I will tell you that, as most entrepreneurial stories go. My background, maybe like many people that are listening and watching this show today, started off in another career, in another field, in another desire. We'll say, for me, it was being an international airline pilot. As a little kid, that's all I ever wanted to do. I studied, I learned. I was second youngest person hired at a particular major airline. I was 25 years old at the time. Wow. And it's the best job in the world. I mean, I was flying all over the planet. I was, I had the safest, most secure job. I had a pension, I had a seniority number, I had everything. I had the job of a lifetime, really. It was a dream until a certain day in history. And that day was 9/11. And 9/11 obviously affected millions of people, and myself included. The way that it affected me was 2 days after the towers fell, I was delivered a furlough notice from my safe and my secure job. Mm-hmm. And it made me realize that job was not safe. It was never secure. And now I was going to be on the street with 50,000 other airline pilots. So to say that you got punched in the face very, very hard, 9/11 obviously was horrific and tragic, but now to be a byproduct and basically be on the street, what was even the kind of, we'll call it the kill shot or knockout blow. Yeah. So at the time, I figured, I realized that because I was so specialized as a pilot, there was really not much I was skilled to do. Sadly, all I knew how to do was fly an airplane. So imagine I had to go home and tell my wife, I don't know what we're going to do because I really don't have another skill set. Mm-hmm. And normally what we would do today is we'd go to Google and what else could I do? What are other derivatives and cash flow and all these fancy terms. Well, at the time, 2001, Google barely existed, and YouTube wasn't even an idea yet. So I had to go to that building with books in it called the library. I had to get a library card, and I became a student. I checked out a book a week, and every week I read a book on building wealth, and everything seemed to lead towards real estate. So I didn't know anything about real estate. I just started going down that path, and I read as much as I could. I learned all about regular investing, creative financing, flipping, wholesaling, subject to double escrow closes, you name it, and I learned it. And for those of you that are new in the industry, yes, these things did exist long before the current genre today. They've been around for a long time. And so I learned them. And I started doing that. I started making money, got really good at it, learned how to negotiate, and made enough money, bought an apartment complex with a business partner, sold that, started buying some single family houses. And my business partner and I, through a necessity, we started a management company to manage our own properties. And that management company soon grew and scaled with a business coach. We built up to about 1,000 properties.
Nice.
We were in 3 major metropolitan cities. We were the fastest growing company in Texas at the time. We're growing organically. 60% of our company was outsourced to virtual assistants in Mexico before virtual assistants were a thing, we'll say. And we ended up getting approached by a venture capital firm. They proceeded to acquire us. So we exited, we sold for, we'll say, well into 7 figures. And the way that we did it was using my background and my knowledge as an airline pilot. So the systems, the structure, processes, procedures, checklists, emergencies, all the things that make an airline run, we basically injected into our business to make our business run on autopilot.
Yeah.
And once I sold and I became a vice president for them with 10,000 properties, I did about 2 years with them, ended up leaving. And then I just had people approaching me, asking me, how does an airline pilot build a business from scratch to make it run without them on systems and be able to sell it?
Yep.
So I started showing people how to do it. And so now what I do is I consult and I mentor and I do, 2-day conferences. I do 4-day masterminds, showing people how to build your business, whatever it is you do, how to make it systematized and automated to run on autopilot without you being involved. Because what I've learned is that many people on here probably have what they would call a business, but I would challenge them and say, if you can't walk away for 3 days or even 3 weeks and have it run without you and be stronger than the day you left, you don't own a business, you own a job.
Yep.
And it's probably a low paying, low fulfilled, high stress job at that when you factor in how much time and stress you're putting into it. And I've learned that any business can be automated and systematized. It's got to be a system centric. And so that's what I do now.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. There's a lot, and there's some gold nuggets there too, guys. What's interesting is my background was systems too. My first job was with NASA, Langley Air Force Base. Oh. And then my second job was tracking Soviet subs for the U.S. Navy as a contractor. And then my third real profession was actually in banking and operations, lots of intense systems and checklists. And in fact, when I first got my license, I did teach investors how to invest, and some of my favorite clients were airline pilots. And it wasn't just because they were a lot of fun. Believe me, for everybody listening here, if you want to have a lot of fun, go hang out with some airline pilots.
We definitely are a unique group. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. They're like cowboys in the sky, man. I'm telling you. But the cool thing is they were organized. They had systems, like you said, and decisive. That's one of the key hallmark characteristics of successful people is they are decisive, right? I don't mean hasty, and I don't mean, you do take some risks sometimes, but when you have your systems and you have your checklist, it's easy to be decisive. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the table. Now, so going forward, and there's something else I want to pick up on. I didn't realize that you mentioned you have some 2-day events and some 4-day events, and I love going to those things. I mean, my success is in large part because I belong to groups of other people who are like-minded entrepreneurs, but included people who were a step or 2 or 3 ahead of where I was, right? And willing to share their time with you. So if you don't mind touching on that a little bit, and we can come back later and give people information on how they can attend if they want to participate in those too,
Yeah. And so, the events I do, I feel there's a very large void in industries. And I work with, anywhere from real estate investors, property management companies, commercial roofers, HVAC people. Because I've learned that the chassis or the underlying infrastructure of all businesses is the same. Whether you own one rental property, you own 50, whether you own a commercial roofing company, it doesn't matter. And so in this 2 days, I break down and help them rebuild their business from understanding, first of all, do they even have a business plan? So I'll give you an example. If you and I tomorrow said, hey, let's go to the airport, Gary, and let's just pick a plane, any plane. We pick a plane, we get up in the air, we start flying, and I'm like, hey, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to Hawaii? Do you want to go to Alaska? We want to go to Mexico. What do you want? But I've never been to these places. I have no idea how much fuel it takes. I don't have a route. I don't know the weather. I have no contingencies if things go wrong, but I've got a good gut feeling. Mm-hmm. You probably would not get in that plane with me. But how many of us start our business that way?
Exactly.
We've got no destination. We don't know what it looks like when it's built out. We don't have contingencies. We don't know how much fuel it's going to take to run this business to a successful outcome. So first of all, I show people how to build a business plan. Mm-hmm. It's not hard. It's not rocket science, but it's necessary. It's like it's like building the foundation of a house. If you don't build a business plan, if I went to a bank and said, I want to borrow $5 million, first thing they're going to say is, well, what's your business? I don't know. I got a good gut feeling. Well, they're not going to loan to you. So first thing we do is we discuss creating a business plan, and I show them the facets of a business plan. Then what I do is I start going into the nitty gritty of their business, meaning the top marketing mistakes that businesses are making that are currently putting them out of business. Understanding what is it that businesses are doing wrong. At the end of the day, Gary, what everything that we do, everything you do, everything I do, everything that, Delta Airlines, United Airlines, Chevrolet, we are all a marketing and sales company. We just sell and market a different product, service, concept, or idea. And so there's a lot of mistakes because people think of themselves as operators, not marketing people. And I think that's a very, very grave error for businesses, especially, as you said, with realtors nowadays trying to understand the shifting market. So I break down the marketing mistakes, and then I go into sales. Sales is all about communication. I'm a big believer in DISC profiling, and I break down how to communicate with people through a personality profiling called DISC profiling. Because if you don't understand how other people communicate, well, you're not communicating with 75% of the rest of the population. You're only communicating with what you are, which is 25% of a DISC. So I explain to them how to communicate, because as you grow a business, you have employees, you have staff, you have customers, contractors. Everybody is a different DISC profile. And in order for you to have a successful business model, you have to learn how to communicate. Then I go into the systemization of your business. We talk about systems. Every business has anywhere between 8 to 11 systems. Some businesses like property management, as I know, has up to 19. But you've got to identify those systems, and then we've got to systematize them. Then we automate them. And lastly, we outsource them. Then I go into key performance indicators, the dashboard of your systems. How do you know that your car is running well or not well is based on the dashboard of your car. KPIs are the dashboard of your business. If you don't have KPIs and you don't have metrics, how do you know your business is healthy? So I explain to them what dashboards and KPIs they need in their business. And then I go into how to grow your business with virtual assistants. So I built a multi-million-dollar company using virtual assistants. And I explain to them, and I give everyone the actual playbook. This is what we use them for to build a multi-million-dollar company. And I give that to you at my 2-day. And lastly, we talk about leadership. And we discuss, why do leaders fail and why do businesses fail because of lack of leadership? Because a lot of people mistake leadership for management. And that's a grave error when you're trying to build a business. You need both, but there's a distinct differentiation between the two. So imagine 2 days of that. I mean, it is a jam-packed 2 days. I do them all the time. And it's just, again, I try to get people to understand that whatever you do, that is your role now. When you start a business, that is your role, to look at all of those facets to grow the business to be a sustainable model that runs without you.
Yeah. What's really amazing here is you touched on something and you dove deep on it. That's extremely important. And what I always tell people is, look, you've got to master 2 sets of skills. One of them is whatever is the product or service that you offer. You've got to, that's usually where the passion starts. That's their gut feeling. Hey, I've got this great thing. I know the world's going to love it. That could be true. But if you don't master the other set of skills, which is the skills of being a business person, you've got to feel, think, speak, and act like a business person. Or like you said, the banks aren't going to pay attention to you. They might say, hey, got a great idea, but you have no structure, no organization. And I used to own a property management company too. And it's a system of systems. It's exactly what it is. In fact, when I got into real estate brokerage, I didn't do it to be a realtor. I did it because I wanted to do more investing, and I needed to be on the inside because most agents were not trained to work with me. They were wonderful people, helped me buy and sell my own home, but did not have a clue about investing. It's a different set of skills and talent and knowledge and methodology and terminology. So that was like the wild west. I got into it. The real reason I succeeded, Steve, was because I implemented systems from my background. So moving forward here, for those of you listening, this is extremely important. Whether you're a dentist or an engineer you want to start your own consulting firm, lawyer, accountant, if you don't have the systems in place, you don't have the iceberg iceberg. You only see the top 10%. That's what the consumer sees. That's your product or service on the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the water is a massive set of systems in place that help that thing go, and where there's no limitations. If you should be able to grow exponentially if you have the right systems in place. And this sounds like, Steve, exactly what you're doing. So this is getting even better than I thought.
Well, and and one of the things, Gary, I'll say is that you touched on it. And I don't want to let it go. Is that when I coach people, and I coach hundreds of real estate investors and realtors and business owners, my first question, my very, very first question is what's the sale date of the business? Now, many times they'll come back to me and say, Steve, I'm not going to sell this business. This is a legacy. I'm going to pass it down, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But that was not my question. My question was what is the sale date? The reason you have to have a sale date is because in order for it to be a saleable asset, it means it has to run without your involvement, which means it's a true business that's running on systems and procedures, not on you. Because if I said, hey, Gary, I want to buy your company, I don't want to buy Gary. I want to buy the systems of what Gary created, because I don't want you in the company I'm going to buy. So the more valuable you are in your company, the less valuable it is. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second thing is if you can't identify a day, a month, a year, like that specific to building your business with an actual number, I want to have by June 1st, 2027, I want a business doing 10 million in revenue, 35% profit margins, working 3 hours a week. Now we have a target. Like an airplane flying a plane, I know what time I'm going to land that plane. Well, a couple things with that. And I think this is very important for people that are listening to this. If you are not doing what it takes to build that business of a $10 million company with a date, number one, how are you going to get people to come work for you and be inspired when you don't even know where you're going? Number one.
Yeah.
And number two, my next question is are you a $10 million CEO? Are you acting, talking, walking, doing the things that a $10 million CEO does? So the one thing that we don't think about is, are we acting like the CEO for the company we want to build? Because if you're a $50,000 employee, and there's nothing wrong with that, you're not going to build a $10 million business. And I think it's a challenge a lot of people never think about. And it's just something that I've learned. And that's one valuable thing that I coach people on to understand.
We'll be right back with the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast after I invite you to Monday Night Live. Every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, I teach a class without fail for you on subjects ranging from flipping to buying rentals, managing rentals, wholesaling, commercial, creative purchasing techniques, analyzing properties, identifying properties, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subjects. And if you are a licensee, if you have a real estate license, you should definitely tap in, because there are a lot of investor agents also in the class. Many of them are on the global investor agent team. So you can learn from them, as well as from me, how to actually work with investors correctly and profitably. All right, we'll see you Monday night. The link is in the show notes. Go ahead and register. We'll get right to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Yeah, it's so true. There's lots of Um, Diagrams and charts I've seen over the years, but the one that I like the best is, what it exemplifies is what you just said there. In order for you to perform at the next level, you have to start thinking at that level first. You can't, your current thinking, whatever got to where you are today, is not the thinking that's going to get you to the next level. So I like to use this stairwell, kind of analogy here. So when you're growing, first thing is a lot of people mistake I've seen people make is they start having success at the next level and they walk away from the prior level. And like, wait a second, you can't, it's just like climbing a ladder. You don't jump up 3 rungs at a time. You don't even take the next step on a ladder with your right foot till your left foot is firmly planted on the step below it. And the point I'm trying to make here is that each step of the way, you're positioning your business, right, by thinking the next level so that you don't have to be at that lower level anymore. Like you said, maybe 3 hours a week or something, but that's it. That's going to be so firmly in place that you can safely step to the next level. Next thing you know, 10 years later, whatever your game plan is, you've climbed 10 steps, 10 rungs on the ladder, you're at the top. You look back and you see all these happy, successful people, right, that are in your trail. You've positioned them to be successful in their own right. I mean, that's all about developing leadership at those levels. And I'm going through that now with my career. I'm on my 7th business, and it's fun. Entrepreneurship is, if I had to go back in the corporate world to feed my family, yeah, I'd do it. But I don't see that happening. I know now I can make way more money on my own being an entrepreneur than I ever did in the corporate world. But I want to touch on something. One of the key systems, you actually mentioned marketing earlier, and one of the things I recognize a lot of people, and I even in myself, like let's just take real estate agents for example. The most successful real estate agents I met when I first got in the business were the ones who were excellent networkers. Then you had to shake hands and kiss babies and belong to the right clubs and things like that. But for the most case, really didn't market. They might have had a business card and things like that. But nowadays, to compete, you've got to have a marketing system in place. That's one of your systems. And, of course, you still need a network. But would you mind touching on that? Because this is where I see people fail sometimes is it's the marketing. That's if there's something that's going to bring you down. I mean, would you agree that's one of the key components in today's business world?
1,000%. Awesome. I agree. I think so. I would venture to say there's 3 vital parts to every business. And this is what I speak on a lot of these is monetization, systemization, and duplication. If you don't have monetization, which is the inbound flow of revenue, you're going out of business. You just don't realize it yet until your bank account says 0. So that's marketing and sales. So marketing is the top of the funnel, the tip of the spear, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
In order for a transaction to happen, you have to have a problem and I have to have a solution. If I said, hey, I've got these great steaks, Gary, they're amazing. They're going to melt in your mouth. You're going to be able to cut it with a knife and you go, I'm a vegetarian. Okay, you don't have the problem that I need. If you know what I mean? So you have to have a problem. So as a realtor, as a property manager, as anybody, there has to be a problem and solution. One of the biggest challenges is that, and this is in any business that I've coached many businesses and I believe firmly that marketing is essential, is that we don't even know who our target is. Meaning we can't identify. I believe in grading your clients A through D. D's are the ones that every time the phone rings, we all have them. You're like, oh my God, this person's just going to complain. It's going to take up 20, 30 minutes. There's going to be no outcome. And they're the cheapest clients I've ever had. You got to learn to get rid of those. Next, you've got to figure out your C's. Your C's are the ones that are either cheap or they take up your time, but they're okay. They pay your bills. The B clients are actually the silent majority. They pay their bills. They're happy. You don't even hear from them. Every time you talk to them, they're a dream. Mm-hmm. The A's are just like the B's, but they're evangelical. They're raving fans. Mm-hmm. They sing your praise. So if you take your A's and B's and you figure out what is the common thread, what was their average age, average income, maybe even gender, their demographics of where they did, what was their occupations, and most importantly, what problem did you solve for them? Yeah. If you can figure that out, that is the marketing message, because you just want more A's and B's. Now you also want to figure out what was the marketing message that got me a D, because I don't want to do that marketing message anymore. I don't want D's. So you've got to stop that marketing message. And sometimes it's a matter of going to your A's and B's and saying, I'm just curious, why did you use me? They may go, well, you did this, this, and this, and I like that. Okay, great. Ask a couple more. If that's the common thread, that's the marketing message. Sometimes just answering the phone and showing up is enough to get the business, as we know.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, 1000% marketing, understanding your target market, identifying your A's and B's. And once you identify your A's and B's, there's two things that are vital. Number one is repeat customers, getting them to ring the cash register over and over again, because that brings down, as you know, your client acquisition cost. Next is creating a referral program. We hang around with the 5 people we're like. If I said, Gary, you're an A client, who else do you know? You probably know other A-type clients that are just like you. And as you know, a referral has the highest conversion rate and the highest profit margin than any other type of inbound lead.
Yeah.
The problem is we just don't ask for it. We don't ask for the referral. It's a simple question of, who do you know?
Yeah.
And we don't do it. And that's why so many people have challenges.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest, and I'm going to speak directly to the real estate agents here. The biggest mistakes I've seen in real estate, inevitably, and the brokers do this too. I don't understand why. The new agent comes in. Well, what should I do? Well, you gotta identify your sphere, load them all into your database, which is all, that's good. And then for some reason, they all end up doing this postcard that goes out. And whenever they come on my team, I said, no, we don't do postcards. And here's why. Generally, they're trying to send them to a geographic area, 1,000 to 7,000 people. And I always ask them, well, so who are the people in there? What are they, what are they doing for a living? What's their vocation? How many of them have children? How many of them are retired? How many of them are single? How many got married? Nobody knows. They're just trying to they're trying to say something to everybody. And my philosophy is, if you're trying to say something to everybody, then you're saying nothing to nobody. Your message has to match the market, right? So, and that's why the marketing is so important. Is it's not what you want to say, it's what they need. Like you said, what's their problem? What is it they want, or what are their needs and wants? What do they want to do? What's the problem? And by the way, when you master that process, now you've got something that you can profit from. That's one of the other legs, and duplicate, right? So it's in the duplication, guys, is where you actually get to where you can retire. It doesn't mean you walk away from your business. I mean, you can walk away from it, but you're not walking into the door every day running your business. Okay. You get it to a point where now you have 10 other people doing what you mastered the skills of doing, which was your product or service. But back to the marketing, that there's a famous triangle from Dan Kennedy, the marketing triangle: the market, the message, and the media. When you speak the right message, it's all about communication. When you speak the right message to the right market with the right media, that's the 3 M's: market, message, media, you're going to have success, So in fact, would you mind, I know we're going to get close on time here, would you mind touching on the communication part? Because to me, that's another vital, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, right?
Yeah. And so, I was very fascinated with negotiations, and I learned a lot about neurolinguistic programming and disc profiling, because communicators are the wealthiest people on the planet. And so when you look at that, you wonder why. It's because everything is communication. Words are only valuable for 7% of our communication. Body language is 55% or 59%, and your tonality is 33%. But yet we put so much time. That's why text messages are misunderstood so much. Because it's only 7% of the effective communication. That's why they created emojis. So you can kind of put a smile like good morning, and you put a little smile there. So you change the tonality of it. But when it comes to disc profiling, so everybody is some form of a D, an I, an S, or a C. D is a very dominant, matter-of-fact person. An I is someone who's a social butterfly, chatty, happy-go-lucky. An S is someone who's sentimental, emotional. They talk with their heart on their sleeves. And a C is someone who's very compliant, data-driven. They like numbers, spreadsheets, everything is black and white. Mm-hmm. When you listen to people talk, once you know disc profiling or any other variation of that, once I listen to people talking, I can tell you what kind of disc profile they are. Are they a C? Are they an S? Are they an I? Mm-hmm. When you want to establish rapport with someone at a subconscious level, the only way that that's done is you're going to like someone who's like you. So mm-hmm. I could tell you're a C profile because you're very methodical when you speak. You speak very monotone and you're very direct. So I can tell you have a lot of C in you.
Yeah.
In order for us to establish rapport, I want to talk the same as you. Mm-hmm. If I was someone who was way out of here, you and I are not going to reciprocate and we're not going to get along. So if I am a salesperson and I am this how crazy person, most salespeople are I's. A good salesperson is an I/D in that realm because you're normally a variation of two. If you're a C and you want numbers, and I'm talking about how colorful the rooms are and how pretty they are, and you're like, I just need the numbers on my spreadsheet, we're not going to resonate and you're going to move on to someone else. So a good salesperson can identify what that personality is and they become a chameleon. And they become a C so that you and I can communicate and you go, I don't know what it was. I just like Steve. We just seem to click. It's because I changed my disc profile. So at my 2-day event, I explained it in much more detail, obviously, but disc profiling is, I used to make so much money in real estate and people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I focused on negotiating and communicating. Communicating and negotiating is not talking. It's listening and it's asking questions and it's understanding what their problems are and how you add value to that. And it's establishing rapport. People do business with who they like. You and I may have the right solution for you, but if you don't like me, you're probably not going to do business with me. And that liking me, that rapport is actually established at a subconscious level without you even realizing it.
Yep. Yeah, we're in the critical thing. When I first started this profile, I kind of took it lightly. I couldn't even remember all the D and the I and the S and the C were. But over time, I learned that this is really critical stuff. And what I really learned was he who can migrate across the quadrants easily and effectively makes the most money.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. And in fact, this is a side note, but someone told me once, people who can migrate across the different quadrants and stay there longer than a half hour generally have the higher IQs. I don't know if it's true. It's just somebody told me that sometime, and it sounds like it's very possible. So, hey, I know we're getting close here on we always try to keep it to a half hour, and it's okay if it's a little bit over. But I want to go back to the events. Do you have? Is there a way for people to go and check out a schedule, a calendar, the process? How do they get a hold of you? Can they go to there's two different, so you have masterminds and you have the 4 days, and the 2-day events are more like coaching, right? Is that, go ahead and talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 2-day event, I do them pretty much every month. I do them in different cities. September, and I know this is October now when this is coming out. I got one coming up in Orlando. And I do them in multiple different cities, Houston, Texas, Charleston. If you go to my website, steverozenberg.com, that's ROZENBERG, and you click on events, it shows you all the events of where I do my 2-day events. The 4-day event is a much more intense breakdown of a 4-day event plus 1 year of coaching. This is for people that you have to kind of get selected to come because I give you a year of my life. And the one thing that I have learned to protect is my time. I don't need to coach anyone. I do it because I like to, and I can make a difference in people's lives. So I'm pretty selective at my 4-day events. I only allow 10 to maybe 15 people to come. And this is life changing, but it's for people that are very serious. I tell people the best thing to do is come to my 2-day event. If you can't get away from your business for 2 days, you need to get away for 2 days because that's a sign you've got a bigger problem.
Right.
And I guarantee you, that if at the end you are not completely satisfied, I will give you your money back. At the end of 2 days, you said, Steve, it's $997. So it's $1,000. If you're telling me that I mean, we're on the call for what, 40 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Imagine 2 days with me. And this is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is full throttle. These are workshops too. This isn't just me sitting there pontificating. You're actually working in your business in workshops.
Right.
And as you know, you and I are big believers in self-development education.
Oh yeah.
I'm a product of the product. I get coached. I get mentored. I am trying to get better. The day you stop trying to get better is the day you're getting worse. It's like a tree. You're either growing or dying. And if you're not getting better, I guarantee you're getting worse. And the worst part about that is there is someone coming behind you to take your business. So you could say it's okay to get worse until someone takes your business and puts you out of business. So when we enter into this entrepreneurial space, we owe it to ourselves and to our team to constantly get better. And that's what these 2 days are. Sometimes it's a refresher. I get people that have come to multiple 2-day events and they're like, every time I come, I leave with a notebook full of notes. I'm like, well, they say that, the teacher appears when the student is ready. Maybe that message wasn't ready for you last time and it resonated this time. But at the end of the day, we can all learn something. And if you get one nugget away from marketing or disc or systems, wouldn't it be worth just giving it a shot to see what you could do to build your business? If you said no, then I would learn from you. Tell me what you're doing that's so great because I want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a great, I've always tell people this too, is when it comes to going to events where you're helping develop your business and helping develop yourself personally, is think about how much money you make in a day, right? And there's 365 days in a year. Let's say you're lucky and you just work 5 days a week. That's what does it come out to? 220 some odd days a year or something like that. Would you give up 1/220th of your annual income to go and learn something that can maybe help you double or better your income? And the answer should be yes. If it's not, maybe you're doing your passion's not there. Something who knows? I don't know. But most people that are entrepreneurial see the value in investing time, energy, and money into themselves and their businesses. And that's how you grow. I mean, if I counted up all the lanyards I had over the last almost 40 years, my gosh, I need somebody to help me hold me up because they'd be so much weight, So, yeah. Well, I tell you what, all right. So steverosenberg.com, they can go there and get the information. And it sounds like maybe start with the 2-day, right? And go from there. I think the 4-day is probably where we're going to make the most massive gains, but it sounds like the 2 days is the start there,
Yeah, I recommend people to start at the 2-day. Listen, and I'm very upfront. When I do my 4-day, it's a $50,000 investment. It is not cheap. But I will 10x your life. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I have people that I've changed their lives. If somebody invested $50,000, but I helped them turn it into a $5 million business, is that worth it? That's for you to decide. I don't know. But if I and I don't quantify success on dollars. It could be maybe I got you into being healthy and I stopped you from having a heart attack. Maybe I got you closer with your family. Maybe I got your business to run without you so that you can go create vacations. I don't know what's important to everybody has a different thing, but what is that worth to you? What are you willing to pay? Because the one thing that I bypass is time. The one thing we don't have more of is time. You could figure it out on your own. It could take you 20 years. And the interesting thing about business, which is weird, is the longer you're in business, the higher probability you have of going out of business, which you think is opposite, right? But that's not the case. So why would you want to risk that if someone has gone down the path? And I could show you, Boeing has spent millions of dollars over the last 25 years showing me how to be an expert in systems, emergencies, checklists. If you're on an airplane and an engine catches on fire, you're pretty much banking on the fact that I'm trained and know what to do. If they trust me with a $250 million aircraft, you should trust me in your business for your engine fires.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. That's one of always liked working with pilots, because great business partners, guys, because you know that they know how to make decisions. They're trained. They've got the system. They got the checklist. They can think quickly and be decisive. Thank goodness, because you're could be 30,000 feet and something could go wrong, and you want an expert in that position. Same thing in the rest of your life. And if you're still thinking of your day in terms of how much money you're making, and not how much time, free time you have, then you're stuck in the world of the job. If you want to get to where you measure your success in terms of time, you've got to work on yourself and your business. And I'm advocating Steve is the guy to help you do that. So don't be shy. You are worth it. Your family is worth it. Your business is worth it. And I promise you this, when you commit and you devote time and energy, money to your development, personally and in your business, you're going to succeed in all aspects of your life. Because your money, what you have in terms of time and money is going to affect your relationships with your loved ones. It's going to affect your ability to travel freely and not worry about how much it costs. Yeah, you want to manage a budget, but a budget isn't punishment. A budget is a plan, right? It's a system, right? So when you think in those terms, and you think in terms of, how much time do I need to go travel around Europe next summer for 3 months, and confidence that you'll come back, your business is probably worth more money and making more revenue, So in any case, I want to leave you with that. And I want to, Steve, thank you again for participating with us. It's been awesome. I want to invite you to I teach a class every Monday night called Monday Night Live, and stay on afterwards because I want to invite you officially to teach the group of, these are people I personally coach myself. All over the country and all over the US, some in Canada. And out of about 100 people, about a third of them are driven, ambitious, and they need to hear your message. So in any case, Steve, before I sign off here, any final words of wisdom, anything you want to tell people before we go?
I think, at the end of the day, this crazy world of entrepreneurship, the one thing that we should all be focusing on is memories. Mm-hmm. And so some of the stuff we do, we're always so busy being busy, but I think sometimes we have to slow down and remember that we're doing it for our loved ones, for our family, but we don't always include them in what we're doing. Meaning they don't know what we're doing. We're often, Gary went off to this seminar. Now he's doing something crazy again. What's he doing? You're doing it for your family, but they don't really know. And then sometimes we get so busy being busy, we forget that memories are free. Taking your spouse and your children or whatever you have to a park is free. Going to a movie, going to the beach. So along this crazy journey, there's no destination. Our destination, unfortunately, is the afterlife. It's the journey we're on. So I think sometimes I would just say that we should enjoy the journey a little bit more and not plan for the destination, because you'll be sadly mistaken when you get to that point. You'll be lonely. You'll be burnt out, and you'll be very disappointed thinking that that's what this was all about. And I don't think it is. Yeah,
no, I agree 100%. Thankfully, I've had enough. I like to tell people, God didn't use a 2x4 on my head. He used a 4x4 multiple times. And
I hear you.
And I learned through it is just the process. It's the relationships, having the time, the free time to be with the people you love, family and friends, doing the things you love to do. That should be the ultimate aim of your business, not to be number one or be the richest. I mean, those were all, I'm not knocking those goals, but really what it comes down to, guys, I promise you, as you travel through life's journey, over time, you're going to realize it's time that matters the most to you here on planet Earth, and how you spend your time with your loved ones. I can't put any more succinctly than that. And I want to ask you a favor, everybody. Please leave a review for this podcast. I'm sure you agree, this is one of the best ones we've had. Leave a review. It's the currency of podcasts. It doesn't cost anything, and yet that's what makes the podcast world go around. So we really appreciate you doing that. And while you're out there, go to steverosenberg.com and sign up for one of the 2-day events. It's $1,000, guys. Chances are he's going to come to a city close to you. So look for that, and then take that first step in that journey and personal development, self-development, business development. And before you leave the internet, go to globalinvestoragent.com. And again, I'm speaking to the agents here, guys. I can't emphasize this enough. If you're not sure what you're going to do when this market actually does turn, and I can't tell you when, because if I did, we'd all be billionaires. But the reality is like scouting, we're prepared. We don't worry about when. We don't panic. We prepare, and we show you exactly how to do that by working with people like Steve. So you guys take care of yourselves. We will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. In the meantime, God bless you and your families.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.